All right, all right, all right. Let's do this. In this conversation with Alexa Sinyachova with Moeco, and I discuss the innovative tracking technology developed by Moeco, which provides real-time monitoring of goods throughout the supply chain. We explore the transition from traditional RFID systems to more advanced solutions that require no infrastructure, emphasizing the importance of data accuracy and the potential for AI integration in supply chain management. Our discussion highlights real-world applications, challenges, and the future of tracking technology in various industries, including food and pharmaceuticals. And I want to take a moment to thank Alexa for persevering through multiple cancellations and just making this episode happen. Let's get into it.
You're listening to Supply Chain Unlocked. Get exclusive insights from industry leaders on overcoming challenges.
Welcome to Supply Chain Unlocked, take two, with Alexa Sinyachova. Did I get it? There we go. We're going to jump into the technology. In full disclosure, this is the second taping of this because her and I got halfway through an episode just now, and I forgot to hit record. So Alexa, let's go and just jump into what the technology does, the variables that it covers, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So our company, Moeco, we started as a team of hardware and software developers, having a really great experience of combining both. So you need the software or kind of a sensor to extract the data, like temperature, humidity, shock detection, opening detection, in order to understand the conditions of the goods in transit. And you also need the software to reflect the data, to work with the data on the what if level, then this. And we've done a number of projects, and we've been working on a product for a long time, working with different clients, mostly Fortune 500 bigger companies, on demand, doing an asset tracking project. We've done it a number of times, and then we understood that the biggest problem lays in end-to-end supply chain, really covering the product level monitoring from the location and conditions perspective. So we track where the goods are and if they're in the right conditions from the moment they've been manufactured till the moments they're on the recipient side. In this case, what is happening, the customers are happy because they've received the goods in a proper condition at a proper time. And the manufacturers, the producers are happy because, of course, they want to deliver the goods in a proper condition to their customers. So we're basically covering these two ends, and we're really making a difference, making a change in the industry. And I think we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah. So can I just call that, you're delivering the real story, the real story of what happens with a product or an asset as it rolls through the supply chain.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's sometimes called the product life cycle. When you say we're delivering the story, we really tell people what happens, like what's the origin of the goods, where it's coming from, how it's being delivered, the whole path. And of course, the most important is the right conditions of the delivery.
Yeah. So with that said, here's probably one of the biggest reasons I get excited about this technology is I have two other clients that are mandated by the FDA. To the audience, if you don't know this, the FDA, I think, put out 4 years ago that we need full traceability for products from dirt to store, as I call it. They flowered up with some other technical names, but from the dirt to the store in the case of grocery stores. And I see that that's where this really applies. What I want the audience to understand, or we want the audience to understand, is this isn't RFID, the old school, where it it's got to be within X amount of feet of a sensor as it flies through the door and all that other stuff. This is so far past that. And we might reiterate that a few times. But the other one that I'd like to dig into a little bit is the shock detection or the opening. Sorry, we already covered this, so I'm going to ask her to recover it when I wasn't recording.
No worries. First of all, I want to comment shortly on RFID technology, which was very valid for a long time. And now for the very plain explanation of the difference, any RFIDs, they require so-called gateway. So the information is being stored on the sensor level, but to extract this information, they need to go through some gateway to give this information into the software so they know what was the story of this product. And a lot of times it's required an infrastructure. You need to build a really big infrastructure and invest in it, even though RFIDs seem to be very cheap. When you think about the whole infrastructure, it's expensive. In our case, we need zero infrastructure. And we have actually, to dive deeper, we have two types of products. One is so-called data loggers, which are all the time capturing the data from the moment I use, and it's the sticker itself is like a sticker on the box that you would never know it's even the sensor. It's like a flat piece of paper, and that is capturing the data all the time. In order to see the proof of transportation and the conditions, you need to just scan the QR code from this label onto your phone. So you will be able to see everything. And that costs just a few dollars for the whole solution. It's super cheap and easy to implement. It requires no gateways, just scanning the QR code. But on the bigger level, monitoring cargo with no effort, without scanning any QR codes, with the data being automatically delivered to the software platform, we have so-called active tags, which are the close to real-time data providers. So you know where the product is in this moment and what is the condition of this moment if you open up the app or if you open up the desktop. And basically it will only signalize if something goes wrong. That's when you get the signal into your phone and the email that, for example, there is a risk that these goods are damaged, stolen, opened earlier than needed. So these kind of signals we can capture, and you don't have to even think about it. You just get it on your phone. So again, reiterating from basic RFIDs, a lot of efforts, then a medium version with the capturing and logging in the data and having it on your phone with a sophisticated so-called active. This is our most popular product, is the real-time tracker.
So when we talk about this, I'm gonna throw out some examples that come to mind, like the opening of the asset, meaning it's light sensitive, right? That's going to trigger something within a system because it's now seeing light, or the other direction, right? It's not seeing light.
Correct.
Is that a rough idea? The reason why I'm pointing that out is generally that I've never seen that technology inside of trailers, cargo containers, any of that stuff. The other one was shock detection. That is interesting because that can be used in many different things, especially if you have multiple tags within a shipment on the assets and all of a sudden 5 of them report some shock. You know that when that thing gets to its destination, potentially you only have 5 that really got affected and the rest did not. That's huge. Now, whatever that product is, go ahead. You were going to say something?
I just want to give you a very good example of these. Is when we're tracking, we basically tracking two types of goods, either sensitive goods like temperature sensitive food or pharma, or any sensitive goods from the fragility perspective like expensive electronics, and so-called mission critical goods like Formula One cars.
Yeah.
So if the Formula One cars is being transported from one continent to another, people who drive that car, who want work with this car, wants to know if it's been hit and where and when, and they need to be really very informed. I don't know if you can say that, very informed, but like they need to know all the details about the transportation of this so-called mission critical goods. Same with the turbines from the airplane or parts of the cars or any kind of equipment that are mission critical. And in this case, as you gave a very good suggestion, that the heat sensor or the shock detection sensor makes a lot of sense in this use case.
Yeah, so let's jump to the other part. I don't even know how to term it except for current technologies. And anybody on the audience can argue or reach out to us in the comments below. But current technology generally does some association. And what I mean by that is you might have a tag of some nature on a pallet, or you're just tracking what goes on inside of a trailer. And then you got to make an association via data that is not easy to get to, that what was in that trailer, you got multiple pallets, or in the case of if you're just tracking the pallet, all the SKUs on that pallet, getting to that data after it's transferred through many different systems. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's a real pain in the ass, because I've had that after implementing this kind of technology, or I should say this tracking category of technology. That is very difficult, trying to associate down to an asset level, like I joked before, a tomato, a part for a car, anything like that. It sounds like that is not what you're doing here. You are actually tracking either data logging or active to the actual asset. You're tracking to the tomato, the tomato. I'm joking. There's other ways of grouping these things. Just to be clear with the audience, is that correct?
That is correct. You're right, Teddy. What we're doing is there shouldn't be an effort to combine all this data at the end. You should
Yeah.
just know where your products and their conditions in a very direct and easy way, easy to access way. So for each SKU or each item, let's just we call it a shipment, because it's basically we track on a shipment level. So for each shipment, you just know where it is in the system, and you can open up the dashboard and see the conditions of this exact shipment, and you know what is in there and what is the threshold. For example, if the temperature goes lower than 5 degrees or higher than 40 degrees, notify me. And there is a template at the very beginning that you just say, yes, this is the type of the product and this template is applicable. And then you just sit and relax, and the system notifies you. And as we also call it, the shipment is becoming smart, and it is notifying you when something is happening with it, when something goes wrong.
Yeah, so you and I have talked about this before on this podcast. We stay away from the C-level vanity terms, so I'm going to get down to like real world stuff that's going on, at least in the States. It's the FDA is forcing these companies, and rightfully so, to track these things from the dirt to the store. I know I said that before, but we'll stick with our examples for food traceability. And it is very difficult to track maybe an avocado or lettuce. Lettuce is a great example what gets contaminated. And if you're not tracking to the product level or the item, let's stick with that term, to the item level, it is very difficult to know, in the case of lettuce or food, after it goes from the grower, it starts going into multiple distribution center points often. I'll give you an example. If it's growing in California, a lot of times that goes from the grower to some type of distribution center in California. It's then trucked from there to another distribution center. And all along that point, it's within multiple systems from DC to DC. It's within a different carrier from that DC to the next DC. And then for distribution center, my bad. And then from that distribution center to the actual store, that's a whole nother carrier. There's different temperatures, there's different systems. That's why I got excited about this technology, because I have two large clients that are working with the food traceability mandate, and that's where I think this technology would help everybody out a lot more. And the other part I'll say that I want you to touch on, or do you disagree with any of that? And then I have one other point or question for you.
Happy to share that this is the exact problem that most of our clients are referring to, so-called end-to-end monitoring. Most of the time, you just gave an example of the internal US transportation. That is less of a risk than if you do the multimodal overseas transportation. Then the risks are getting even higher. And our sweet spot is when the item goes into the ship, and then the truck, and then other truck, and then it travels quite a lot. Nowadays, there are a lot of technologies that can track the assets that are moving these goods. But honestly, problems usually occur in between, and nobody knows whose fault is that. And that's what we're covering. We're capturing the data continuously. So we have the so-called proof of data, when it happened, on which side. So if you can say whose fault is that, I don't want to use these terms, but in a very simple manner, and how to deal with that, including the insurance claims afterwards. So it's end-to-end monitoring from the moment it's being produced until it lands in the recipient side. It's a long way, you're right. It's important to capture the data at all times.
So let's stick with that responsible party for a minute, because every time you get contaminated lettuce, you get contaminated meat, all that other stuff, you get into some huge liabilities for these companies, and everybody gets drugged through it. I see where this technology is going to be very good at deciphering where the problem got started and probably that it exacerbated after that, right? To your point, it's really the responsible party or the beginning of the responsible, because, man, when these lettuce contamination things in the States start, it is very tough to figure out where it got started. Was it at the grower? Was it, when they were picking it out of the dirt, or out of the farm, I should say? Sorry, my mind just gets excited about this stuff because it is so applies to so many things, even outside of the food supply chain. I've been involved for years also with the automotive parts and aerospace parts. And you get into some high dollar parts that I think this applies to. Let me transition us a little bit to the technology that we pre-podcasted on. And your tags, if I can call it that for a minute, those tags are end to end, but they're one way, right? What'd you call it?
End to end, but there is one way. It's called data logger.
Yeah, meaning, sorry, I forgot the term, but essentially it's a one-time use, right? It's not reusable.
True. This is disposable, one-time use. And again, this is the client's request, because we were doing the multi-use trackers in the past. First of all, they're bulky. Second of all, it's a pain, additional pain, because you need to attach it, recharge them, send all the way back to the origin. It's more work than it is the simplification of the work. So we only used sticker sensor that is one-time use, can be disposed together with the packaging. So the back of the sensor is paper, made out of paper. The front is made out of plastic. So it's easy to tear apart in two parts. One goes to plastic and one goes to the paper trash. But I have to say, most of our clients, they just throw it away together with the packaging.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. So I just kind of went blank there because I was thinking about other automotive applications to this, but I don't want to get off into that. But I want to make it clear to this audience what this is not. The current technologies that I've deployed, generally speaking, it takes, to Alexa's point, a lot of infrastructure, and this doesn't take that. And then a lot of infrastructure is usually Bluetooth sensors that sense the door opening on a trailer, the temperature, etc., that has to go to a gateway that goes to a cellular network, etc. That's not this. I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to be clear that there is a peer leap forward that you do not have to do in this case. Correct, Alexa?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah. The reason why I'm reiterating that is not everybody's going to be able to see our facial gestures and us nodding our heads, because this will be the first one that goes out on a non-video podcast, if you will.
Sure.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. Where did the technology start from? And then we're going to go towards, how did you get involved in supply chain, period?
That's a very good question. I don't know myself. I'm just going to share with you how we started, and that it just kind of got evolved into a big thing. So I could never stop after that. So I have 20 years of experience of building software and hardware. Hardware is more recent. I'd say that's for the last 5 years. I'm becoming an expert in this, but for a lot of years, I've been building products, so I know how to do that. And when I've met with my co-founder, at that time, it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I immediately felt like the technology and the idea is very interesting and has a lot of applications and needs of the market. We just had to craft it a little better towards the market needs. So he created the sourcing of the data and the data privacy level of that, and kind of sending the data to the platform without any additional efforts. So let's say at that time, again, referring to RFIDs, you needed the infrastructure. Now we're using so-called mobile connectivity or cellular connectivity to flow the data from the sensor onto the platform. So basically, when it's the active sensor, it is becoming very smart and on the hardware level sourcing the information, on the software level working with this data. Again, on the if-then logic. In the if-then logic. So how we started is that we understood that we don't want to track the data on the asset level. We could do that, but we didn't want to because it just didn't make so much sense to us. And we understood that we want to track on the product or item level and provide this valuable information. And then the challenge was to shift from to the right technology, to shift to the one-time use disposable sensors, to make it also look nice and be small and efficient to use. So we created very unique, we created this, blueprinted this. We're now manufacturing in various countries this disposable sensor that is approximately half of the regular iPhone size and look like a sticker with a little bump in the center that is a plastic one. And it has a mobile connectivity. So it basically acts as a phone and sharing the information. And because it is attached to the item, it is sharing the information as if the item was alive and reporting itself where it is. And I'm okay. My conditions are okay. So if I'm not feeling okay, I will report to you that you need to do something about it. And another challenge was on the software level because we collected this raw data, but you needed some type of intelligence on the software level. So you, for example, provide some suggestions what to do if there is a risk of a damaged good, for example. What do you do about it? Yeah, you have this notification. So first of all, you can notify the end user. So this is the recipient that there is a risk that this shipment is not okay. You can initiate a new one immediately because then you don't have to wait for the response from the recipient side that this is broken, and you can already send the new one. So there is there is basically a customer success improvement here, and the manufacturer brand is not suffering from it. And also to understand when and why the goods are damaged, and to claim that this is not the fault of the producer or manufacturer, that they need to deal with shipment companies and logistics companies. And later on, the last challenge was to find so-called partners. And instead of blaming logistics companies and shipment, like delivery companies, we went to partner with them. And we said, okay, let's do the proof of quality and proof of delivery information and provide this data to the end user on your behalf. So we basically partner with the biggest logistics companies globally. And if they're transporting the goods of their clients, they say, if you want extra visibility close to real time, you can pay a little more, and they implement this technology on behalf of us. We just send these sensors directly to the client. We route the data into their platform, and they can provide this service on their behalf. That's our go-to-market strategy. We collaborate with the deliverers of the goods.
Gotcha. So how do you put that? I'm lost for a term. In other words, I could more or less resell your product under my brand.
Exactly. We even created some products already branded for some companies because they needed to sell it on their behalf under their brand. I have to say that it costs a bit more than the standard product, but we can do it as well. There are a few smart labels on the market that has our technology as premier technology.
Gotcha. Where you could market it as powered by Moeco, right?
Good. Yes.
All right. Did I pronounce that right? Moeco?
No, you're just doing great.
Cool. All right. So let's move to AI. We're really covering use cases / how it works somewhat without giving it everything. Well, let me ask this question. One last hardware question. Is this a lot like the Apple tags that I got in all of my travel gear?
Yes, it's a good question. Very good question. And I will connect this question with AI as well, because this is related. So first of all, AirTag is a very good product that I'm using myself, but the logic behind it is the same, but it's made for consumers. It's not made for cargo for multiple reasons. It needs to be attached. So you actually know the relation with the product. It needs to have a sticky part. It needs to be attached in a proper way. Like it needs to stay there. It must be sticky. Second of all, to implement it on a global scale, you need to comply with other softwares. A lot of times we do the integration with other third-party services, and this is only the Apple product. There is a lot of restrictions. You can't really use it for cargo, and you can't really, for personal reasons, to know where my suitcase is. That's a great use case, but not for the enterprise level. And it's expensive. Let's also say that. Like an elephant in the room, it's just also very expensive. And it's basically attached to the Apple product. And the point with AI I want to shift to, and there is something I need to explain to you and the audience that is listening, which is mind-blowing, at least it was for me, that in order to work with AI on the level that it brings you actual insights or value, incredible value, you need to have enough of data to be able to recognize the patterns. You need to be able to source so much data that is basically impossible to do with a single company or a single supply chain. Let's choose Southern to Northern America. It's just one way to move the goods. Unless you have a critical amount of data, application would be very, very limited. So why I believe the next step for us, at least for us, but the whole industry, is to implement AI and to simplify the human work, is if we can have enough raw data to work with. And this is basically not possible without using hardware, without using sensors, and without sourcing the raw data right from the source. Because all the other things are just assumptions, as you shared earlier, to match the pallets with the truck and then to understand how it's being delivered from the truck to the warehouse and blah, blah, blah. So you need to have enough data right from the source, so the data is very accurate, in order to implement AI on scale. And this is where we're going to. This is the direction we're taking. And that's why we want to work with as many companies on the bigger scale to have enough data to bring value at the end of it.
Yeah, so can you give us some example? Let me shift this a little bit into what is AI? And here's why I'm asking the question, Alexa. So many C-level folks that I interview, they still don't know what AI is. And I don't mean to get off from your product because it is definitely cutting edge. But let's talk about what is, and when do you actually get into AI and not just a tech stack?
Yeah, sure. Happy to discuss that.
When does the intelligence come in? Because this conversation got started quite a second podcast about AI has been around since 1960s. We evolved from machine learning / the cloud, etc. Now all of a sudden everybody thinks AI just came out of the woodwork like around 2019 or 22. What I want to do is like talk about what is AI and then involve it to what you were just talking about.
Yeah, thank you. I won't go to the time of 1966. I would just say very plain language that I like the life example, so it becomes easier to connect the dots. So if you have some operations, let's say you're a CEO and you're hiring AI assistant to help you create meetings for you and to create a schedule of meetings for you. Is it intelligence? Yes. Is it automated? Yes. This is a simple agent. This is like this is a great help to reduce a manual work. But there is another level of intelligence when the so-called assistant knows that in this current schedule that it's created already, there is something that you need to know. For example, these meetings, one after another, you won't get enough time to ride from this meeting to another because there is a traffic in this certain time in this part of the city. And I do not recommend to, combine these meetings together one after another. This is like a deeper intelligence. same agent, but a deeper insight. So you can actually take decisions and say, okay, I'm going to reschedule that meeting based on this information. Just a very plain example of the supply chain and how it works. You can source the data like we do right now, and we notify this is a simple agent. It tells you, okay, your product has a very high risk of being stolen or damaged. It's our very popular use cases. There is a high risk it's been, just not in a good shape. But there is a deeper and a higher intelligence of saying this supply chain has this kind of problems that you should expect. And this is the case that is repeated. So you have to consider it while making a decision towards choosing this chain or on suggesting some other alternative solutions for this problem. So this is something that we can't do right now. And if any company can do it right now, don't believe them. It's not possible right now. It just takes a lot of intelligence behind the different supply chains. But overall, over the time, gathering the right data, and that's the key here, the right data, because assumptions don't work here. In order to provide the real insights, you need to have a very original, authentic, raw data of all the processes. And that's what we're actually doing right now. We're just sourcing all this raw data in a very sophisticated manner. So even now we're starting to, implement some AI on the agent level, let's call it this way. But on the real intelligence that I was talking about, it's yet to be done. I hope that I explained it quite plain.
No, yeah, so let's go back to the example of because you're explaining reasoning, right? And reasoning and intelligence, same thing, roughly, very. But in the case of somebody managing, or the automation managing the email, I'll jump to supply chain in a minute. Give me a sec. Somebody automation of, let's just say, an executive's email or a calendar, and a meeting's scheduled and then it has to get rescheduled. The reasoning comes in with somebody that used to be involved with it knows that he or she does not like to they need their 12:30 to 1:30 blocked out or something like that, and the request comes in to meet at 12:30. The reasoning, or knowing that I've been talking to the spouse, things like this over time, it knows not to book it during that time or that time, and it can give out examples of other times to meet that person likes, and that's only from the reasoning and the experience that the individual has. That's the intelligence. That's the machine learning, etc. Jumping to supply chain. In your AI, it may not be there right now today, but you could do rerouting for certain item levels, because it could be going into maybe the containers overheating and the items reporting that temperature. You could reroute things to the southern side of something, or just reroute because you already know there's a ton of containers getting backed up, or other items in the supply chain that are getting backed up on a bottleneck on a highway, and that container or something like that can get rerouted on the fly because there's actually traffic level intelligence within the supply chain for a reroute. Is that a long way of explaining what you were saying? Or an example?
That's a great example, and I hope that very soon we're gonna be able to do that. And we can give a lot of examples here. I think there is a lot of problems that we can at least mitigate and do some kind of a risk management, and then possibly eliminate when we have enough of data and enough of intelligence. And
So
that's the way.
let's give the audience a picture of what we're talking about, that this is not rocket science anymore. This isn't like lunar land on the moon kind of stuff. Guys, we track ourselves driving down the road and we get rerouted all the time because there's an accident in front of us. This is possible today, and it's intelligence behind the Google platform that does that, or Apple Maps. So this is possible, and Moeco is using it for the supply chain, is probably the best way to put it. Maybe
Yeah,
not the best, but one way.
I really like the way you put it, because for us as founders or as a team, it was always hard to explain it with words because we know the real value of it, we know the real meaning. But I actually like the way you described it, and I will take it with me if you don't mind.
Yeah, I won't run that to the intellectual property office anytime soon.
Nice. It was really great talking to you. It was Also from both sides, I'm happy that we exchanged because I learned something from you, and I hope that you also learned something from me as well.
Well, absolutely. I might be bringing up your company name in some of these project and program meetings for food traceability that I have, because they are endless freaking meetings, because it is a strong mandate by the federal government. We got to get there, and it's difficult to get there because all of these use cases, scenarios that go through these. I think that this technology can solve a lot of these scenarios.
I agree with you.
By all means. So we'll go ahead and start landing this plane. What are to implement a technology like that, or like this, what is your advice to the audience on how to get started?
I think that it takes, first of all, the mindset and the wish to work on existing problems to make processes better and to invest time and money into it. So a lot of companies are coming to us not knowing how to do that, and we definitely can share and teach them and help them do that. But usually on the decision-making level, there must be a decision is basically an innovation transformation. Yeah. And we can bring that in as a team. We're still a small team, so that's the benefit. We come in and we help companies also integrate it. I think a lot of this takes some so-called reflection on the company level to say that, okay, we're not working out, it's not working out so well in this chain or in this process. So it requires some reflection to make this decision. Okay, we need to change that. And maybe the third is, like me, I'm always on the edge of technologies, trying to search for something better on both personal and business sides. What I can automate, how can I use what's being created just now on the market. So just being curious, listening to the podcasts like that, or following some great accounts that are sharing all the newest things coming out. I've just recently been to so-called CES. It's a consumer electronics show. It's just like a great example of learning more about the technology and the industries. And yeah, I wish curiosity and a better decision making for everyone listening.
Yeah. Are you guys going to be at Manifest 2026?
Sadly, this year we're missing it, but yeah, other years hopefully we'll join. But there is an overlap with another European conference that we need to be at because we have a lot of European clients and I need to support this relationship. And we have a really big reseller in the US, so I feel very confident that things are going great in the US. I'm taking care of Europe right now.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. Please provide, and I'm going to put it in the description below, please provide the audience with how to get in contact with you.
That's very easy. I'm very open, first of all, at LinkedIn, just as you looked it up and brought it up. I usually respond to all messages in LinkedIn quite fast. I'm trying to keep up with that. But also, we just created a new landing page using AI, actually. So there is an invitation to contact us, and that could be done not just through me, but with the help of my team to explain what we do and to give you a demo or a trial version of this also possible. So please reach out. We're super open to that.
And that's on moeco.io,
True.
the contact
Yes.
that they can go to. And I will make sure that they get both links to the website, and I'm looking for the contact. There it is. I'll send that so they can just click on that to ready to start tracking smarter. We'll go with that. I just realized that. All right. I think we've had a very insightful discussion. I know that. I think that this applies to a lot of folks that listen to the podcast, by all means. So, Alexa, I truly appreciate the time. It was a little bit of a struggle getting together with our schedules, travel, frozen pipes, all that good stuff. And man, you have been really flexible, especially when I forgot to start the record button.
No worries. We're all humans. We can forget things.
You're listening to Supply Chain Unlocked. Get exclusive insights from industry leaders on overcoming challenges.